Hi, everyone. As you know, we do not have class today, Thursday, November 11th. I'm really sorry I overlooked this important holiday and did not let you know sooner that we would not be holding class today on Thursday. But I wanted to give you a little bit of help and information, stuff that we were going to do in class that I think would be helpful to you to get your challenge to be written, your early draft for Quest 2. So first, let's just look at the prompts that you're choosing from and give you a reminder about what you're trying to do for this essay. And I am going to focus on the first prompt here, where you're doing two things basically. You're presenting a summary of Brainology by Carol Dweck. So that will be the first body paragraph in your essay, in your draft. And then you are going to spend some time explaining the difference between growth mindset and fixed mindset. So your own take on it, your perspectives and ideas about growth mindset and fixed mindset. So you have the summary, and then you have this response where you are thinking about your own ideas related to growth and fixed mindset. And then a really important part of this is, sorry about that, is using your own experience to help illuminate and talk about growth mindset and fixed mindset. So you're going to talk about a challenging learning experience from your own life where you believe you had a growth mindset or a fixed mindset, or maybe some of both, or maybe it was hard for you to determine, did I really have a growth or a fixed mindset? So you're basically using your own experience to navigate the question of what growth mindset is and what fixed mindset is, and you're applying these concepts to your own life. So this part of the essay is tremendously important, and the invention activities that you're working on for tonight, actually for Thursday night, will help you come up with ideas for what to write about, for what part of your own life, what challenging learning experience you've had that you want to focus on. So to help you think about how to do the invention activity, I did it for myself as if I were going to write this essay. And in fact, let me first show you the invention activity for tonight. Here are the instructions. You have options. There's one activity where you're just doing free writing. There's another activity where you're going to talk to someone about ideas. And there's a third activity that has layers of brainstorming and mind mapping. And what I did is I kind of combined this activity 3 with activity 1 to give myself the best chance of coming up with good material for my draft. So let's look at what I did. Let's look back at the what to do first. So for the brainstorming and mind mapping activity, the first layer is to brainstorm or mind map as many different things as you can think of for these lists. Teachers you've had and thoughts or ideas about each teacher, coaches you've had and thoughts or ideas about that coach, people you've learned from outside of formal settings and what you learned from them, and skills or new things you've had a hard time learning. So that's what I started with. And I did this just as a brainstormed list. And I focused on teachers I've had to start out. So important teachers in my life. And I wasn't necessarily thinking about whether I had good or bad experiences with them. I just was listing teachers that I remember and that stood out for me. So there was Miss Manteufel, my 3rd grade teacher, Mr. Lemon, my social studies and Bible study teacher in high school. There's Dr. Diker, who was a really important college English teacher for me. There was a college science teacher. I don't remember his name. That was not a good experience. And then I switched to thinking about coaches and teachers I had outside of school. So there was Victor, my gymnastics coach, and Betty, who was also a gymnastics coach. There's Mrs. Bernstein, who I learned piano from. And then as I was brainstorming, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember Dad teaching me to drive a manual car, and Mom taught me a lot about cooking and baking. And then I went back to, I remembered another teacher in fifth grade who was very sarcastic, and I think his name was Mr. Stender. Then there was my grandma. I learned to sew from her. My soccer coaches, especially when I was preparing to play in the World Masters when I was 40 years old. Swimming teachers, there was not teachers, coaches, and then Mr. Brillius, who I learned ballet from when I was really little. So once I started brainstorming, more and more ideas came about people I had learned different things from throughout my life. And it gave me lots of possibilities for what I might focus on, especially for challenging learning experiences. And then I used these stars to kind of highlight the experiences that I know were challenging, that I think are really rich and offer a lot of opportunity for me to think about what my learning experience was and whether I had a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. So from there, I'm going to move on to layer 2 of this activity, which is choose 2 items from each list, and for each of those 2 items, brainstorm a new list of details for that item. And so for this layer, I decided to use a mind mapping to kind of see how different ideas related to each other as I did the mind mapping. So when I was pretty young, I was probably in like 3rd or 4th grade, I took ballet with this, I think he was Colombian guy named Mr. Brillius. And so I just started brainstorming everything I could remember about that experience, which was pretty hard. He was a very traditional kind of ballet teacher who gave a lot of criticism, and I didn't take that criticism very well. So I brainstormed a lot of details about what he looked like right here, his dark hair, his accent, his very straight posture, and the way he walked around the room. I had a memory of feeling very picked on by him, feeling like I couldn't be good enough. Memory of mom trying to reassure me. And I remember a particular day when I just got overwhelmed by how much he was criticizing me, and I left the class and ran down the hallway to a small bathroom and just went there to cry because I was so upset. Here's some details about the space and what I was wearing. Oh no, this is just what I was wearing. And here are details about the space. And then here I'm trying to figure out, did I have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset in this experience? And in this case, I feel like I definitely had a fixed mindset. His criticism was crippling and made me feel inadequate, made me feel like I could never get better at ballet. So there's an element here of the kind of feedback I was getting from him, that the fact that there was no praise actually at all. And how that kind of led to a fixed mindset for me. So there's a lot of possibilities as I did this brainstorming for what I can do with this in order to get a draft written. So then for my second mind mapping for layer 2, I focused on the experience of learning to drive a stick shift with my dad. And again, I just brainstormed a bunch of details, everything I could remember. Part of it was my sister Carol telling me, don't let him teach you. She tried to learn from him and had a really bad experience with him yelling at her and making her feel really scared about trying to drive the stick shift. Lots of details here about just getting out to the car and getting started. My dad came out to the car with a whiskey on the rocks to teach me to drive a stick shift. And then I remember that I made the car jump, with my first attempt, and he made him spill his drink, and I was terrified that he was going to get mad at me, but he was actually laughing and jolly, so it was kind of in conflict with what I was expecting to have happen. I also was remembering past memories of things I learned from my dad. I remember like when we tried to play catch, and if I didn't catch the ball, he'd say, "Ah, you muffed it," or he would get mad because we were playing too slowly in Monopoly or Cribbage or Hearts, games he was trying to teach us. So I had these past memories that were affecting how I felt about this current experience of trying to learn from him. And one of the things that was interesting to me as I thought about whether this was an experience of a fixed mindset or a growth mindset was I'm not entirely sure. Because of these past memories, I feel like maybe I kind of went into it with a fixed mindset. But I also really wanted to be able to drive a stick shift and knew that I probably could figure it out. So, in that sense, maybe I had a growth mindset. So, part of what interests me here is I'm not entirely sure whether I had a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. And that makes me want to explore this more fully through writing, because I think there's a lot of rich possibility to learn something about my own experience here. So, what I decided to do then is there's a third layer here is to choose one thing from what you brainstormed and free write for 5 minutes to explore the idea. So I decided to do that. And I chose that experience of learning to drive the stick shift with my dad because it feels really rich. It feels like there's a lot of possibility to learn more and to have kind of a complex understanding about fixed and growth mindset as I explore it. So here I just did my free write and told the story. When I was a sophomore or junior in college, I was home for summer break and told Mom I wanted to learn how to drive her stick shift Toyota. It was a pretty new car, silver. I mostly think I wanted to increase my options for summer mobility while I was home, but I also liked the idea of knowing this more intimate way of handling the car. When I asked Mom, she said, "Ask your dad, he can teach you." My younger sister Carol was there and she immediately said, "Don't do it with Dad, Gail. I learned with Dad and he just shouted the whole time. I was so anxious and I drove into a ditch." And then I have a little note to myself after I did the free write. I wanted to be sure to insert past memories of learning things from Dad that connected to that anxious feeling that Carol told me about. Later that night at dinner, Mom brought up that I wanted to learn to drive the Honda, and Dad immediately said in his jolly voice, "Great, I'll teach you this weekend." So, I'm just really capturing the memory and exploring what happened, the process of getting to the place where I was going to have this learning experience with my dad. So between the brainstorming and the mind mapping and the free write, I have a lot of material for what I can bring into my early draft and use my own experience to explore and understand and try to figure out growth mindset from my own perspective, from my own experience. So hopefully this helps you understand both more about what your early draft needs to do and how you need to bring your own experience into it. And it hopefully helps you also understand how to use this process of really good layered invention to help you generate a lot of material to get your draft written. All right, thanks everyone.